Okay, so in today's digital world, right, creators, I think we all feel it sometimes. There's this overwhelming sense of pressure. You've got this endless stream of content, this drive to make things, share things, but also this really powerful urge to like truly own your work. It honestly feels like everyone is trying to copyright everything these days. So let's unpack this a bit. Today we're doing a deep dive into something I find pretty compelling. The whole nature of ownership and creativity, especially how it's changing so fast digitally. We're really zeroing in on this feeling, this idea that everyone is trying to copyright everything. And we've got this really fascinating stack of notes and insights here. All kind of stems from a conversation about making art, about AI, and well, the philosophy behind what can or maybe should be owned. Our mission today, let's explore why this, let's call it copyright obsession, is actually happening. What are the deeper implications for creativity? And then let's step into a really different perspective, I'd say revolutionary, about how we might think about shared knowledge, shared expression.
Especially now that AI is becoming this kind of co-creator, we're definitely going to challenge some basic assumptions about ownership. And it might just shift how you think about stuff. Everything from music to, well, memory. Right, so to really get a handle on these pretty radical ideas we're going to explore, we kind of need to set the scene first. What is this landscape of digital creation and ownership? What does it actually look like right now? Why does it feel so, I don't know, tight, restricted? Well, it seems to boil down to a few key things. First, there's this definite scarcity mindset. I mean, in the digital age, content gets copied so easily, right? So creators feel this pressure, this rush to claim ownership before anyone else does. Like, you see artists trying to register every little snippet, every loop. They're afraid it'll get sampled instantly, used without credit, especially with viral stuff moving so fast. And you've got the big platforms, YouTube, Spotify, TikTok. Copyright there often works like a gatekeeper, doesn't it? It controls who gets paid, who gets seen, and that directly shapes how creators act. We're also seeing something we're calling AI anxiety.
That knot in your stomach if you're a creator, worrying that your unique style, your voice, could just be copied or absorbed by AI models without your say-so, potentially watering down your work. And finally, there's this legal tech boom. New tools making it way easier to file copyrights, enforce them, make money from them, sometimes, maybe, on kind of shaky grounds.
Exactly, and it's precisely that aggressive claiming, like you're saying, that highlights a much deeper problem, a real tension actually at the heart of creativity itself. Because while those reasons explain why it's happening, they also show up this paradox, right? Genuine creativity, I mean, it almost always borrows, transforms, and shares. That's how it works. But copyright law, when it's applied really strictly, can actually, well, punish this. It can sort of freeze art in place.
As our sources really emphasize, art is a living dialogue, not a closed container. That's a great line. Yet the trend is definitely towards hoarding expression. People are scared. And it leads to these locked doors on creative works, even while the tools for collaboration are exploding. And that gatekeeper role of platforms you mentioned. For so many new creators, their whole way of making a living depends on following rules that can feel really limiting, even if their work is transformative. Think about, a small creator getting hit with a takedown notice for some background music they barely used. It's a fundamental tension.
That's a really interesting point about that tension between, the creative impulse and the legal structure. It really shows how deep this scarcity thinking has gone, doesn't it? But okay, there's a counter movement, a kind of rebellion against this trend, which our sources highlight. And that's embracing Creative Commons, specifically attribution licensing. We saw examples described as digital generosity, like creators making their personas open for others to remix, sharing domains, visuals totally freely. It really comes down to this core idea, this philosophy. I'd rather make something beautiful that inspires others than own something that becomes a cage.
Yes, and if you put that into the bigger picture, this kind of radical openness, well, that's exactly what made early internet culture thrive. Remember that? And, it's becoming clearer that this might be just what AI culture needs now. It's more than just picking a license, isn't it? It's sort of philosophical defiance. It challenges the whole idea of creative ownership at a really basic level.
Okay, so building on that defiance, now our sources introduce something that could really shift how we see creation itself. It's an idea. I feel a bit mind-bending at first. The core assertion is this: everything a person can experience actually comes into existence as a waveform. And the really bold claim that follows is no one should be able to copyright a waveform, which implies that these waveforms, all of them, naturally become a part of public domain as it is released into existence.
It is mind-bending, but also quite profound, isn't it? Almost poetic. So to unpack that a bit, think about how our brains work. All sensory input, sight, sound, touch, attain, lay, it's interpreted as wave-like signals, right? This theory basically says creative expression itself starts as these fundamental resonant patterns, waveforms. And interestingly, this clicks with some scientific ideas like quantum theory, where everything light, sound, even thought can be described as wave-particle duality. It also lines up with neuroscience, where all input is ultimately decoded as wave-based signals. So the idea suggests human consciousness is kind of like an instrument built to resonate. And this resonance is not a choice, it's the essential condition of being alive. So the core insight here, the real takeaway is, the waveform is not a product, it's a revelation.
Okay, wow, that is abstract. Can you maybe give us just one concrete example? Like right now, how would this waveform as public domain idea actually change things for an artist, even just conceptually? How does thinking of everything as a waveform really challenge the copyright laws we have now?
Okay, good question. Let's take a popular song's melody. If you view that melody at its most basic level as just a waveform, right? Then, according to this view, its fundamental nature means anyone could potentially build on it, add to it, transform it without needing explicit permission first. That directly challenges the whole system of exclusive licensing, doesn't it? Because copyright law, traditionally, it protects fixed expressions, things written down, recorded, not just raw ideas or phenomena. It's meant for original creative works, not for, say, natural truths or universal structures. So if you define waveforms as these unfixed things like improvisation or breath or just raw vibration or maybe as fundamental parts of nature, then the claim that they naturally become part of the public domain upon release into existence actually holds up. It makes sense in that frame. Think about it like this. The sources use this analogy. No one owns gravity. No one owns breath. Why should anyone own a waveform? It's very much in line with open culture thinking. For music, for instance, we already know that notes and rhythms are not owned. Only the unique arrangement may be copyrighted. A C major chord. Public domain. A specific, unique piano performance of that chord. That might be protected. But yeah, the line gets really blurry now, especially as algorithms start outputting melodies or sound waves at scale. And you do see corporations trying to lock down even basic expressions.
That's a really powerful argument, kind of cuts right to the core of ownership in the digital space. And this philosophical stance, it gets even more direct in what the sources are calling the waveform manifesto. It's quite a statement, really makes you stop and think. It starts like this: we are born resonant, not as consumers, but as instruments. Everything we feel, sound, sight, memory, enters us as wave. And then declares, no waveform should ever be owned. No vibration should ever be caged. Pretty strong stuff. Goes on to say that common sounds, the first cry of a child, the crack of thunder, the 808 thump, the humming of machines, these are public truths, not products. And it wraps up with this really provocative idea. To copyright a waveform is to fear freedom. To trademark a tone is to deny the very air that carries it. And then the positive counter. I release my waveforms into the world as invitation, not transaction. Let them be felt, remixed, harmonized, for in every echo we are reborn. Wow, that's a bold vision. Okay, but let's push this idea just one step further. The sources then bring in something called the echo origin doctrine. This seems less about what you create and more about when you maybe let go of owning it. It sounds like it's about the moment a thought becomes expressed out there in the world. It enters this shared space, this commons. So what happens then when that creative thought leaves your head and hits the air?
Right, this doctrine really deepens that whole philosophical framework we were just discussing. It basically states, if anyone could produce a piano performance that never exits the mind, it would be protected. Which, makes sense, right? Thoughts, dreams, unexpressed ideas, they aren't copyrightable under current law, and never really have been. But then it takes this really radical step. It says, the moment the performance expresses the construct of its own creation to the open air, it cannot retain any form of copyright. Now that challenges the basic idea that expressing something equals owning it. Because, as the doctrine argues, expression implies resonance. and resonance is inherently shared. It can't be contained. Waveforms, just by their nature, they travel, echo, reflect, transform. So when a waveform exits the mind into air, it becomes part of the shared acoustic commons.
That's quite a poetic idea, isn't it? Almost like trying to fence in the wind after you've exhaled. That's the kind of challenge this doctrine points to. The creator can still absolutely get credit, be named as the origin, but they can't own the wave itself because waves don't stay put, they propagate, they move.
Which means the history and description of the voyage could be accredited if waves are reflected by new points of origin. So if someone remixes it, they credit the original source, but the wave itself keeps moving. It's a model, a poetic one maybe, but it feels applicable beyond just art. Think about artistic remix culture, human memory, scientific discovery, even open source software, it resonates there too.
And this echo origin doctrine, it's summed up so nicely in the sources, almost like a creative law of the air. It says, that which is born in silence is the creator's alone, but that which speaks to air and ear travels in resonance and belongs to more than one. It really reinforces that core idea. No one can own a wave, but they may be named as its origin if the echo reveals the shape of its first breath. This is not theft. This is the nature of resonance. Unquote quote.
Okay, so if these waveforms are fundamentally free, inherently shared, what does this philosophy say about trying to track them, control them? I mean, this sounds incredibly liberating, this whole idea. But I imagine for some people, maybe artists trying to make a living, it might also feel a bit unsettling. Like, if no one owns the waveform, how do creators actually earn money in this kind of paradigm? Is this vision really sustainable for professionals?
Yeah, that's the practical question, isn't it? And the sources tackle that head on, the control aspect at least. With a really powerful statement, it asserts, tracking waveforms is a monumental task and should not be an imposition of a mandatory prerequisite for the granting of permission for the forward journey of any wave that streams with the universal matter within all space and time. Whoa! Okay, that's basically a doctrine of release, right? A stance against trying to imprison expression. In this view, a wave isn't seen as a product you sell. It's an event, a motion across space-time, and its value is in its resonance, not in its origin alone. So trying to track it or gate it, put tolls on it. It's not just difficult, it's futile, it is antithetical to the wave's nature. You're essentially trying to commodify motion itself, which sounds absurd when you put it like that. And this connects directly to current debates, doesn't it? Things like DRM, digital rights management, or AI model outputs, digital watermarking, even surveillance capitalism. The argument is that the monumental task of tracking every waveform isn't just a technical hurdle. It becomes an ethical misstep if it becomes mandatory. So this philosophy is really advocating for, well, the unconditional release of waveform phenomena into the commons of consciousness untrapped. It emphasizes this kind of transcendental freedom. It's saying that creative energy and human experience cannot and should not be caged by technical barriers, legal threats, or tokenized receipts.
That is a remarkably, bold vision. It definitely turns everything we kind of accept about creative ownership on its head. So, okay, bringing it back down to earth a little. What does this all mean for how we might actually create and share things going forward? What are some concrete paths forward? How can we apply this waveform revolution? And, I mean, what's the likely pushback? You'd expect some from established industries, right?
Absolutely, pushback is inevitable. But the sources do propose some really interesting ways forward, both artistically and practically. For instance, creating actual artistic works that embody this, like a soundtrack manifesto video, maybe called The Forward Journey of the Wave. You could imagine visuals like notes echoing out endlessly with captions popping up. No wave seeks permission. It travels where the universe allows. Do not gate what moves through all things. Things like that. There's also the idea of publishing a more formal manifesto page. Something outlining the uncopyrightable, a doctrine of wave freedom, laying it all out. And maybe most practically, creating a new type of license, a creative license that refuses to bind. They suggest names like the Waveform Freedom License or the Echo Origin Open License. And this license would explicitly grant universal remix, reuse, and transformation. It would specifically prohibit tracking or tokenization as a condition of access. The only requirement would be that broadcasters name the point of origin, not claim it. You could have a simple clause in there like, this waveform, once released, may travel freely across all domains. You may reflect it, adapt it, harmonize with it. You may not cage its motion. As for pushback, absolutely.
any industry, any entity whose entire business model depends on scarcity, on the exclusive ownership of digital stuff, this fundamentally challenges them. It goes against established licensing, against the monetization systems built on top of that ownership. So yeah, expect resistance.
We've definitely taken quite a journey here. From that initial anxiety of modern copyright, where it feels like everyone's trying to lock down every single note, every brushstroke, all the way to this really profoundly liberating philosophy of the waveform. It's a total flip of the script, isn't it? It feels like a huge philosophical shift.
Yeah.
But thinking about our listeners, many of whom are probably dealing with platforms like YouTube or Spotify daily, how does this waveform freedom idea practically challenge those platforms, their business models, their content ID systems?
It really is more than just music or art, isn't it? It forces a reevaluation. How do we interact with all experience, all creativity, all shared knowledge? Especially with AI changing the game so fast, it nudges us to think about creating not as owning something, but as releasing something, participating in resonance.
For the platforms.
Yeah, it's a massive challenge. If waveforms are inherently public domain, as this argues, then the whole idea of a central authority deciding who owns what, it breaks down those content ID systems, the ones tracking and monetizing every little expression. They'd need a complete rethink, a radical overhaul, really.
Right. And that leaves us with a really provocative final thought, doesn't it? If every sound, every sight, maybe even every thought we have is fundamentally a waveform, and if those waveforms, once they're expressed, can't truly be owned, then what creative acts are you holding back right now? What are you not sharing out of a fear of losing something that maybe was never truly yours to begin with? What could open up for you, for all of us, if we really embrace this inherent freedom, the freedom of creation itself?